Oh, and thank you very much for tuning into Memphis Like Gas and Water's Power Pivot series. I'm Gale Jones Carson, the Vice President of MLGW's Community and External Affairs. The Power Pivot Small Business webinar has covered many topics ranging from business grants, marketing, finance, legal issues, and a host of other pertinent topics, as well as while we pivot during COVID-19. Today, we are following the journey of the first African-American bank in Memphis to the present Liberty Bank, and how Liberty Bank can assist and offer the community, businesses, and individuals its value to Shelby County. I would like to suggest that our Zoom attendees please place your questions in the Q&A section. Our Facebook viewers, please put your questions in the comments area. At the end of today's meeting, there will be a 3-question survey that we would greatly appreciate you taking a couple of minutes to complete. Our guests today are Archie Willis III and Angel Price. And I want to thank both of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and share with us today some valuable information for our viewers. Archie and Angel will look at how Liberty Bank works to build a stronger community and assist businesses and individuals to reach their financial goals. Archie Willis is the founder and president of ComCap Partners and former chairman of the board for the TriState Bank. He leads ComCap Partners, affordable housing, community development, and real estate development activities. The firm provides affordable housing, municipal finance, community development, and financial advisory services. ComCap Partners has been a financial advisor to numerous nonprofit sponsors, private developers, and government entities by providing financing to more than 4,200 affordable housing units and over $11 billion in municipal finance transactions. The firm's real estate development activities include co-developing over 1,100 units of mixed income, multifamily housing on various Hope 6 sites. The firm also partnered with a local development company to redevelop Central Station in downtown Memphis. We also want to congratulate Archie as he was honored as a 2022 Trailblazer. And Archie, all of Memphis and Shelby County, we are so proud of you and the work that you have done in our community. Now let's move on to Ms. Angel Price, who is a native of Memphis and currently serves as the regional Director of Commercial Lending and Business Development for Liberty Bank and Trust Company, the most prominent African-American owned bank. With more than 25 years of experience in banking and finance, Angel has a diverse background in commercial lending, problem loan management, retail banking, and credit administration. Angel has worked for First Alliance Bank, Regions Bank, TriState Bank of Memphis, and now Liberty Bank and Trust Company throughout her career. She remains dedicated to her work in the Memphis community by helping to deliver lending options to small businesses and supporting their economic growth. Angel is passionate about her service to the community. She is a current member of the Finance Committee for the City of Memphis and Shelby County Economic Development Growth Engine, which is EDGE. She previously served as a board member for the Memphis chapter of the Risk Management Association and the Center City Commission Development Corporation. And Angel brings a wealth of experience to share with us today. And Ms. Angel, we're proud of all of your accomplishments as well. So we'll get started. So Archie, can you provide us with a short history of TriState Bank, your involvement, and the history of Liberty Bank?
Sure, and thank you, Gail, for your generous introduction. I appreciate that. TriState was actually formed in 1946 by Dr. J.E. Walker and his son, A. Maceo Walker. Names I'm sure most of our viewers have heard over the years. And the somewhat obvious reason for starting the bank in 1946 was that the majority white-owned banks just simply would not provide loans and financial services to African Americans. So being the aspiring entrepreneurs that the Walkers were, and this was after Dr. Walker had formed or co-formed or founded Universal Life, embarked on forming TriState Bank. And they started with $240,000 in raised capital, which was probably a lot of money back in the 1940s. Over the years, they were very instrumental in providing home mortgage financing. Was one of the prominent efforts back in the early days. And also back in the early days, they were not allowed to really have branches. So the first, I think, 15 plus years, they couldn't get a branch, but eventually they expanded to, at its peak, 5 branches that were spread out throughout throughout the African-American community. They also were the primary lender for African-American churches, both in building and remodeling sanctuaries and building family life centers and just expanding church facilities. And of course, the Walkers, and then later on, Jesse Turner Sr. and his son, Jesse Turner Jr., they were, and plus the entire Tri-State family were very, very involved in numerous civic activities, civil rights efforts, just major players in the evolution of the city. Some of the things I just would touch on in terms of significant accomplishments, as I said earlier, they've financed thousands, literally thousands of home mortgages over the years. They were the lender that actually provided the last funding that was needed to save the Lorraine Hotel from foreclosure. And of course, we all know now that the Lorraine Hotel is the National Civil Rights Museum. At their peak, they employed over 70 people with a multi-million-dollar payroll. They put together a syndicate. This was, I think, in the late 1990s, and raised $4.5 million from several minority-owned banks across the country to lend to the CME Church. And the CME Church used the proceeds to reinvest in the Texas College, which is in Tyler, Texas. Otherwise, the college would have shut down. So that was a significant accomplishment by the bank. They've been involved in several affordable housing, community development projects over the years. And again, just been a very significant player in the African-American community. As time went on, especially after the recession in 2008, the challenges of running a small bank just continued to grow. And of course, those are compounded by the fact that we're a minority bank. The advances in technology, which you all have all experienced, we're experiencing it right now, has been rapidly growing. And it just got to be a very, very challenging environment to keep up with. We were talking earlier before the presentation started about the mergers in banking. And we just read about the merger of TD Bank and First Horizon. That's a multi-billion-dollar transaction. But the reason I bring that up is the banking industry is consolidating. We're having fewer and fewer banks, and it's becoming even more challenging for a small bank like TriState to maintain its competitive advantage and compete against multi-billion-dollar enterprises and even the large community banks that are in our city. So that's really
Archie, can I just ask you a question right here? Sure. When you talk about the competitiveness, what do you think has attributed to the TriState Bank being able to last all of these years and to be as competitive as they have been at the size that they have been?
I would say, Gail, it's really, we have a very, very loyal customer base. And,
yeah, my mother loves TriState Bank. I'm just telling you, you can't make her leave. She gonna die having some money in the TriState Bank.
she's in a lot of company. There are a lot of people that just, that's the bank they started out with. Mm-hmm. And so your mother, she's probably of the generation where she was, didn't have the options that you have today and I have today. And those folks are very, very committed to the bank. So I think the bank has maintained a good level of service. They maintain, the core products and services you need to successfully compete. And they've had a great customer base. So it's been a struggle from time to time. And leadership is also a challenge. When Jesse Turner Jr. retired, we've had, I think, Angel, 4 CEOs since that period of time. So
what year did he retire?
Jesse retired in 2018.
Wow.
So we had, and that's not a lot of time. So we've had 4 CEOs, and the challenge there is finding a person who has the qualifications, the experience, the expertise that wants to operate a small minority-owned bank. Because a lot of those folks have options. I mean, the same thing in terms of banking. They can go to the and work there and make more money potentially, and certainly be a part of a stock option program and the kind of benefits that you get in corporate America that we really didn't have at TriState.
So do you see it as a stepping stone to a larger bank?
Actually, that really wasn't the case. We were getting people had been in banking, and most of the people we ended up working with did have some commitment to minority banking. Our last president was from Baltimore, and frankly, he got caught up in the pandemic in terms of he was initially started out commuting and it just wore him down. So he and his wife decided they really didn't want to relocate to Memphis on a permanent basis. So he just literally had to transition to a new arrangement. So a lot of factors come into play, but really we didn't have people leaving. We had some of the younger folks that did leave for better opportunities at some of the other banks in the city. That is a factor. But on the executive side, there really wasn't the case. Our last president, Mike Edwards, actually had retired from a smaller community bank. They're bigger than TriState, but they were a small community bank. So he had tremendous amount of expertise and happened to have some time on his hands because he had just left a job the year before.
Okay. So I appreciate that history. I want to point out that Maceo Walker's daughter, Patricia Walker, who took over, I think, after him, she also served on the board for Memphis Light, Gas and Water back in the late 70s.
Right. And you all have a station, a facility named after her, I believe.
Yes, at Shaw. So let's go to Angel. Angel, let's discuss Liberty Bank's commitment to the community.
So thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my excitement about Liberty Bank. I was fortunate to have worked at both banks. And Archie didn't tell you that he's responsible for recruiting me over to TriState. So I had a 3.5 year run with the bank, and was a true history lesson. And every time I talk to somebody about the bank, I learned something new, like today. But the bank's transition to Liberty was really, if Archie didn't already mention this, based on all the changes in the banking industry. And in addition to that, it was a good cultural fit because we are a minority-owned bank. A lot of similarities and parallels to Liberty Bank and TriState Bank. Liberty is based out of New Orleans, Louisiana. It's a billion-dollar bank, which is a much larger bank than TriState, but still a community bank in the sense of the word. In banking, we do have a similar mission and focus on the African American community. And like Archie mentioned, back when a Maceo Walker was prevalent, there were still issues prevalent in our community that still stands today. There's still some disparities in home ownership, still a lot of challenges with what people call access to capital for small businesses. So there is still a large disparity, and which is why our bank is important, and why it's important to preserve an African American owned bank and predominantly African American.
So let me ask you this, Angel. So the customers that you have, or some of the potential customers that you have, would they be customers who are of greater risk?
A greater risk. We are still a bank, so banks are regulated. We have a certain risk tolerance, but what I will say is because of our minority depository institution status, we have some more liberal ways to underwrite and creative, because I believe with the African American owned bank, understand our community and the challenges that we face. So as a result, we put programs in place where we can underwrite around those challenges. So they're not greater risk. It's just different ways of approaching credit and underwriting.
If I could, Gail, just weigh in on that a little bit, and Angel makes a good point, and you hear in the community people talking about minority customers being greater risk. The truth of the matter is they aren't necessarily a greater risk in terms of their ability and willingness to repay. It's how risk is measured and how people's credit worthiness is measured is the problem. And of course, that whole system came about from a discriminatory background to make it hard for African Americans to be able to be credit worthy. So we're fighting a system, Angel's fighting a system that historically was not designed to really evaluate credit in a way that you might evaluate, in the way that Liberty might evaluate it as relates to their customer base.
Well, I appreciate that. And I really wanted that information out there because like you said, so many people do think that they may, many minorities or African Americans maybe have a greater risk. But as Angel said, you have guidelines that you must follow, but you look at credit differently. You look at credit probably more fairly. So, so what are some of the programs that are available for small businesses that you have?
We are a traditional bank. We offer the full array of banking products, commercial loans, mortgages, commercial lines of credit for various needs for working capital for small businesses. We finance equipment and inventory. Of course, all the checking and saving products that you're familiar with any bank, we offer those. We have a subsidiary insurance company, so we're able to refer business to our affiliated insurance company. So just a array of products and services.
So, so we're still in the COVID pandemic. The numbers are going down. We don't know if we're gonna have another surge. I pray to God that we don't. So how have you helped small businesses during these last 2 years? How have you helped them pivot? How did you work with them on PPP loans? And are you still offering that kind of assistance?
So starting from prior to our merger, TriState, we originated maybe about close to $8 million in PPP loans, which helped nearly 1,000 employees in the city of Memphis keep their jobs. While that number doesn't seem, that large compared to some of the other institutions, some of what is considered the micro businesses. So if you're aware with the time where only they blocked out a section of time where small micro businesses could apply, and we handled a great deal of that. The same, they originated a lot more than TriState, but it's all merged into one operation now, and we're working closely with most of those clients that haven't applied for forgiveness to get them through. So we've helped with the PPP loans. We helped them kind of handheld a lot of that process. We offered at that time of need deferments. We did not charge for those deferments. So what that did for the businesses, it gave them payment relief. Not only for the business owners, we did that for just regular consumers that had mortgage loans or car loans or other installment credit that they needed relief on working at that time. That was a tremendous help for many of our customers. And as far as the PPP program, that is all terminated now. As far as originating any, there are businesses involved in the forgiveness piece. So it's still, wrapping up, but it's not an active program anymore.
Okay, thank you. So Archie, I read all of Angel's experience that she brings to the table. How were you able to get her to come to come work with you?
Well, what she didn't tell you was how many years it was the first time I had a conversation with her before she actually joined the bank.
I'll answer that.
Actually,
You
Ed
know,
met Angel when she was at a community bank. I don't know how many years ago it was, and we just talked and chit chatted, and got to know each other and became friends. And every time I see her, I mention to her, and then it just what happened. And most recently, she was at Regions, and she was really experiencing what a lot of African Americans experience in corporate America. They get to the point where they hit that glass ceiling for no real reason. Like you can't go any further. And then, of course, she's a female, and of course, the banking industry is still predominantly white males. So I just think the last time I talked with her, I got lucky. She was like, this may be a good opportunity for me to move. And she's always had, and I knew this about her. She always had this desire and this willingness and this commitment to help our people. So that was never the question. It's just a matter of when is the right time and what is the right form. So I really, after many, many years of talking with Angel, got lucky and caught her in the time where she was at least thinking about doing something differently, and we able to bring her on board. So we appreciate it. She's done a great job. And what she didn't say about the PPP, they literally dropped, she and her team, everything they were doing to get these loans processed and originated and approved. And frankly, we had a number of applicants that had gotten not necessarily turned down, but the applications got put at the back burner on with the other banks, and we were able to get those folks processed. And so that was really a significant achievement that Angel led for TriState.
Well, thank you for that, Angel. But Archie, you said something earlier that caught my attention. You said years ago that you all had difficulty, or the TriState had difficulty opening up branches, and that they ended up opening up 5. How many branches do you all have now? The Liberty Bank.
We are actively weighing our options for a second location. It is a couple pay grades over me. But what I love about our company is Memphis is a premier market for the bank. They have a very, they're tuned into what TriState started, and they have a respect for that in the community. And we need a second location just because of the numbers. We need a second location to serve more of our community. And our CEO is very aware of that and is very open to that. So we were actively looking at I guess it's okay to say now, at some of the former First Horizon locations as maybe potential bank sites, because they acquired Iberia, and maybe you don't need an Iberia and a First Horizon. So we thought we may be able to negotiate some real estate transaction with that, but the news broke, so we don't know where we are on those things. But
Okay.
We're looking, we're open. If you know of a site, let me know.
Okay, so I do know, Archie, that historically many of your customers, they have been with you forever, and so many are up in age. So how are they? How is the technology challenge for them? How are you working with your older customers who some don't want to use the phones? Some of them just don't want to use the technology. So how are you working with them?
I'm gonna let Angel answer that, but most of it. Let me interject this. It is a challenge, and frankly, I'm one of those. I'm not super old, but as I told folks earlier, I'm embracing my senior status, and I'm not on the cutting edge of using technology. So it's been a struggle for me, and my kids just like don't understand. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you use this app? Why did you go to the bank? And I was like, well, that's what I've been doing for 4 or 5 decades. So that's what I know how to do. So it is a challenge.
Yeah, but so as we bring on the younger customers, they prefer the technology, right?
Yeah.
As you just referenced your children.
They do prefer the technology, and I keep telling them though that and they aren't to the point where they're doing major transactions, but I say as you get older and want to do different things, you need to know and have a relationship with your banker. So at some point, doing something online is not going to work for you. the basic services, they'll give that to you all day long, credit cards and, small loans and things. But when you want to make a major transaction, you need to go talk to a human being in a bank, and you need to have a relationship before you have that conversation.
And what you're saying about those personal relationships, just the history with the TriState Bank. I know Eliza King, she used to work there, and she's been gone for over 30 years. So she can still talk about the customers that she worked with when she was at the bank.
Right.
And I mean, the personal service, just knowing your customers, that is what you get with a community bank.
Yeah.
So Angel, how are we pivoting? You said we have one location now. So how are we pivoting for those who still want to come in and have difficulty and challenges?
Customers, because our customer base is changing, and some of those customers, like Archie just alluded to, can't or just won't embrace it. And we, in a sense, in those scenarios, we work alongside of them. We know that that is our base, and it's very, very important for us to preserve that because they were there when Archie alluded to earlier on the call. They're very extremely loyal to TriState, and we want to preserve that loyalty. So we work with our customers the way we have to. Some, like you mentioned, they don't want to come in. They just want to do everything online, and that's fine with us. And there are those customers that just don't or can't. And we work with them the way we need to work with them. So it's a balance.
Well, and that's good, and that's great that the community bank that you all, Liberty Bank, that you are finding a way to work with your older clients who are your base and who have been loyal to you all forever, and then that you're also bringing on or have brought on new technology for the younger people who they just want to do things quicker, more efficiently. They just want to do it easier, and so you're making it available for several age groups. So going forward, say we're about to leave the pandemic, the numbers are going down. Do you feel that that you will have an increase in individual banking, small businesses coming to you all? How do you see coming out of this benefiting the bank and the community?
A lot of capital to lend. And so we put programs in place for small businesses. We have a product now. We refer to it as the lightning loan, hence the name lightning. It's a reduced document type of credit, and process. It's a smaller dollar loan, but it benefits businesses that need a smaller dollar for a specific need, and we put that in place to help businesses and also deploy capital to help the bank. And we have a large initiative for home ownership, affordable housing. So we have a mortgage program that's online. You can go online and even apply for that through our website. And then all the other traditional small business credits are there. So we have a pretty ambitious goal in Memphis, as well as our whole enterprise, as I call it, in the other states. We're in 10 states, and we're just here to continue to lend and provide our services.
So we greatly appreciate that. But as we come to a close, I would like each of you to, provide some closing words, some advice, some direction for your current customers, for your potential customers.
Well, I'll start, and thank you for having us. This hopefully was helpful to your listeners. I would just encourage the small business owners to really take Angel at her word and check out TriState if they aren't already customers, and challenge them, frankly, to do better and serve better and do more for our community. Angel pointed out, this is a huge market because of our population, our demographics. And I've told this to the folks down in New Orleans, and I think they understand that. But, you know, there's still, I mean, and it's just almost humorous. I can run into certain people that I know, and you all probably know some of them. And you mentioned TriState, and they'll tell me a story about TriState that's 30 years old. And I've heard it 10 times because they tell it to me every time I see them. And I'm like, you know, you need to move on. You know, what happened 5, 10, 20 years ago, move on, go out to TriState, talk to the people there, and challenge them to meet your needs as a financial institution. That's what they're there for. We merged with Liberty intentionally because of that. They're the largest Black-owned bank in the country now. So I would encourage all your small business owners to check them out and challenge them to become better and do more for you as a customer.
And Archie, before we go on to Angel, I'm glad you mentioned about people talking about experiences from 20 or 30 years ago, and just moving past that and giving this bank, this community bank that's been here for customers, for minorities, for a very, very long time in our community. So just as you said, try them out, give them a chance, and see how much better they've gotten. Everybody, you know, gets better year after year after year. So Angel, what are your words?
Well, I'll close with you know, just by thanking, you know, you guys for giving us the opportunity to share a little bit about Liberty Bank and to really think about and understand the need for an African-American owned bank in Memphis. Because like we have options. I have 4 banks. Some people don't. And because I do business with the African-American owned bank, I afford those people that don't have all those options and opportunity. And for that reason, you know, I think it is so important. And, you know, Kim asked me for a quote, and I kind of like to use, you know, I like to meet people where they are. You know, sometimes you have to see past some of the numbers and get further into the underwriting and figure out why they have had this challenge and help them they're trying to achieve with their businesses or in their personal lives. So I would just end by saying that to remember TriState, there was a need for a TriState bank. It's gotten a little bit better, but it's not good yet. And until it's good, we need to preserve an African-American owned bank in the community.
So I want to thank you for that. Our guest today, Angel Price, who is the Regional Director of Commercial Lending and Business Development for Liberty Bank and Trust Company, and Archie Willis, who is the founder and president of ComCap Partners and former chairman of the board of TriState Bank. I want to thank each of you for coming on with us today and sharing the valuable knowledge that you did with us today. And I want to thank our viewers for being with us today. So we're out. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.